Welcome to today's episode of Freshly Grounded. And if you're a fan of the kind of content that we create, we would be super grateful if you considered joining us and supporting us on Patreon. By being a member of our Patreon community for just £5 per month, you'll get access to early release of episodes, extra content, and a few other bits and bobs. But most importantly, you support Freshly Grounded. Sign up at patreon.com/Freshly Grounded, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Sorry for blabbing. I apologize. Enjoy. Ricky Nuttall is a firefighter and was one of over 250 first responders who were called to the fire at Grenfell Tower on the 14th of June 2017, which was 4 years ago this week. He suffered from PTSD as a result of the life-changing decisions he had to make that night, and it eventually led to him considering suicide. Rick talks to us in this episode of that very journey. He also tells us about how and why, as a non-Muslim, he decided to fast during Ramadan this year and what he learned from it, as well as his recent stint on Channel 4's SAS Who Dares Wins. You can see more for Rick at his website at justrick.co.uk, but for now, this is episode 234 of Freshly Grounded. Enjoy. And welcome to Freshly Grounded, the brand new podcast.
Well, it's not exactly brand new anymore, is it?
Welcome to Freshly Grounded, the podcast.
That's better.
Created by best friends Faisal and Sam.
Huh?
I said welcome to Freshly Grounded.
After that bit.
Created by
After that bit.
best friends Faisal and Sam.
Really?
All right, cool. So, Rick, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yes, lovely to have you on, man. I really appreciate your time. I know you're, like I said, a very busy man, and I'm just glad we made it happen. And you're here now. You're in the studio. We're toying with the idea of doing it virtually. You're very pro being in person. I'm really happy about that.
Yeah, I think it's much better to do things like this in person. I think you get a lot more out of it, and it's nice to be back on my old stomping ground in West London.
Yeah,
as well.
exactly. It was really surprising when you said that your early days of firefighting were here. So it's good to know. I thought I'd start by giving you a little explanation as to how I got in touch with Rick, those listening, and it was really interesting. So I saw your I saw you on SAS Who Dares Wins, and man, I watched I think I got in touch with you after watching. I was a bit behind, so after watching the interrogation.
Yep.
And you can see, I guess you get a gut feeling, don't you, when I just felt like this person is for lack of a better term, a nice man. You know what I mean?
I've been called worse.
And you seemed incredibly empathetic, and I want to go into that in a second about your empathy, because you seem like you have like extreme empathy, which is great. But and it was so surprising. The end, I think it was the end of that episode, to see you go, and then it all made sense when it was like, well, the whole team was suffering, all of this kind of stuff. So anyway, I saw that, and me being nosy, I was like, oh, let me see if he's on Instagram. So I found you on Instagram, and I just clicked on one of your videos, and it said Eid Mubarak, and I thought, oh, he's a convert, right? And that's even bad to assume, to be. You could have been born Muslim, to be honest.
Yeah.
But right. I was like, oh, he's Muslim, right? And then I saw the most endearing, amazing, empathetic, again, I'm going to be saying the word empathetic so much in this episode, video ever. And it was you for 5 minutes talking about how you fasted the last 2 weeks of Ramadan, and even though you're not Muslim, and about how if you are interested or questioning somebody's maybe way of life or anything, take a walk in their shoes. I'm actually going to pause that because I've gone too far. I want to actually discuss that way later in the episode. The point was, I saw you on SAS. Yeah. How was that?
It was amazing. It was amazing in terms of an experience. I guess you go into these things not really sure what you're going to get out of them, hoping that you'll get something out of them. I don't think anyone goes into it blind, so to speak. I think when you sign up to something like that, it's quite an extreme thing to do. So I was very aware that I felt I needed to get something out of it, which was closure, a new timeline following on from Grenfell. And I guess I thought that was going to be a situation that would break me down, strip me back to the bones, and give me a chance to work out exactly where I'm at mentally, not so much physically, because I think physically we can all do amazing things if we push ourselves. It's always our mind that will let us down long before our body does. So to actually take part in something like that, it was an incredible experience, and thankfully I got everything I needed to out of it.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that it felt very like it felt very wholesome. I spoke at the beginning about the interrogation, and the surprising, I think, element for everybody watching was when you open up about Grenfell. It was, I think you'd already mentioned in previous episodes that you were a firefighter, but to know that you were in the Grenfell fire, and that was something I think that's close to a lot of the audience members in Freshly Grounded, actually, because as you know, the area, very heavily Moroccan area, as well as many other, is very diverse, but it's right next to one of the main mosques over there.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, our office at the time, our Freshly Grounded studio, was a stone's throw away as well.
Right.
And so my brother was actually at work when he saw everything happening. And so I think with anybody, it's not just about the fact that we were at close proximity. I think Grenfell had such a big impact on so many people's lives here in the UK that your ears do perk up when you hear Grenfell and somebody had an experience with it. What was that like? You were one of the firefighters that responded. Talk us through it.
I mean, it's one of those situations that being a firefighter, how I explain it to people is we go out to that one thing that will never happen to you. That's my everyday. So we go out to car crashes, fires, all sorts of random things. And every day always starts off the same, with you not knowing what you're going to get, not knowing how you're going to feel at the end of your shift, not knowing whose lives you're going to impact or come across, what kind of people you're going to come across in your day at work. And that's a part of the job that I love, the diversity of my job, meeting new people and discovering new things and taking on new challenges. When it comes to Grenfell, it was a day like no other. Obviously, I mean, it's been highly documented that there were 72 lives lost tragically. And it's the biggest fire, the biggest loss of life from a fire since the Second World War, which really sort of hits home how bad that tragedy was. And for us as firefighters, turning up to an incident like that, knowing already that it's an insurmountable task, from a very early stage, we knew that this was going to be a job that was going to define careers, and it was. The bit that affected me the most out of the whole fire, I guess, was the scale of the tragedy. And I don't just mean the loss of life. I mean the scale of the tragedy in terms of the ripple effect of trauma that came out of that and the amount of people whose lives were affected. If you ever go to one of the silent marches, which is on the 14th of each month, I believe they're starting up again now post-COVID, hopefully. It's one of the most incredible things you'll ever go to, and I mean that in the most respectful way. It's to walk with so many people side by side from different backgrounds and religions and cultures, all for a common goal and for a single cause. And then to hear the names of the people that perished in the fire listed, and it's the same surname after the same surname after the same surname after the same surname. And that's when it really hits home. You think, wow, like entire, several generations of bloodline have been wiped out by this tragedy. And that is something that I've really struggled with myself personally since the fire. The injustice of that level of loss of life is so hard to swallow when it's my job to make sure that doesn't happen. And I know we can only do so much, and I know that as firefighters we will always give our everything, but when your everything isn't enough, it hurts a lot.
Is it? Do you find that as a common kind of trait amongst your colleagues, that it seems like you really care the extra mile? Empathy is like a very common trait in firefighters.
Yeah, I think you have to have that empathy built in. People deal with things differently, right? And different things affect different people. So not everybody, in terms of firefighters, not all of them struggled the way I did after the fire. Some struggled potentially more than me, some less so, some were largely unaffected. And again, I don't mean that in a sort of a callous, sort of disinterested way. It's just the way humanity is. It's the way human beings are. Some things will affect you and some things won't. Some people will process things differently. I know a lot of people, for them, they won't go to silent marches, they won't engage with the media, it's like almost for them as if Grenfell never happened, because that's how they have to approach it, because otherwise it would destroy them. my way of approaching things is I'm going to talk about it and talk about it and talk about it. And when I finish doing that, I'm going to talk about it some more because I need to, other people need to. And when you stop talking about injustice, that's when injustice wins. You know, if we don't talk about Grenfell and we don't highlight it and we don't bring it to the fore every opportunity we get, we make it easier for those that are culpable to get away with it. And for that, though, you know, those lives that have been lost in vain.
When you mentioned on the show that it was PTSD, you suffered from PTSD after the fire. Was that because of a particular event that took place in those hours, in those like 2 days, or was it when you reflected on it after, or just the whole thing? What was it that led to that?
I mean, ultimately, it was the whole thing. But
right.
there was a particular incident that I was involved in at the time, which basically we were asked to go to the 15th floor to rescue a guy from his flat that was trapped in there and had been onto our control and said that he couldn't get out without being rescued. With the equipment that we've got, we already know when we're tasked with rescuing this guy that the chances of us being able to do it are slim. Just because of the distance we've got to travel through the building. We had no water. We knew we'd be low on air. We're carrying a lot of additional equipment, which is going to slow us down. The stairwells are narrow. They're really busy with people going in and out and up and down and firefighters everywhere and hose everywhere. So we knew it was a big ask. And we had a long battle to get up to the 15th floor as it was. We got lost a couple of times, had to come off the stairwell onto the landings to try and work out what floor we were on because there were no floor numbers on the stairwells. And all of these things were taking time and eating up air, valuable air that we have in our BA cylinders. So by the time we got to the 15th floor, we're outside his front door and we've had to have a very quick conversation where basically we've had to weigh up the odds of us getting out with or without him. And our whistles are going off already on our BA sets, which is telling us that we already should be out the building, and we're on a 15th floor. It's 550 degrees Celsius on the landing, so it's ridiculously hot, and we're just on our own. It's me and another guy, and we're just on our own. We were probably the firefighters that were furthest up in the building at that time. And it was a really weird, eerie silence. And it was a very lonely place to be in that moment. And there was a genuine concern between us that we're probably not going to get out of this. And we really did feel that way. We genuinely sat there and thought, we're not going to get out of here. And then we have to make a judgment call. We have to use our training, we have to use our skills, and we have to look at this front door and think, right, if we open this front door, just because of the heat that we're in. And again, I know at the moment it sounds like a very weighed up, measured, calm conversation, but this reasoning, this rationale takes place in a split second in your head, because every second that's ticking away is a second of air that we're losing, and a second more that man is in that flat waiting to be rescued. So you weigh it up and you go, right, the chances of him being alive in there are very slim anyway at this point because of the temperatures alone. We know the fire's burning from the outside in as well as the inside out. So the chances are that the inside of his flat is engulfed in flames anyway. Where we are in the landing, there are no direct flames at this point. If we open that door, all of the smoke in the corridor can ignite. We're then in a world of trouble. If we get into trouble, firefighter protocol is if a firefighter's emergency alarm goes off, every firefighter in the vicinity abandons what they're doing and makes their way to rescue those firefighters. We are the number one priority, because if we are dying in fires, no one gets rescued. So if you get into trouble in a fire, it also can potentially mean that someone that was going to get rescued now isn't, because that firefighter has to come to you and help you. So our decision making isn't just based on an arguably selfish perspective of, I want to be all right, so I'm going to go. It's a case of, you have to literally weigh up what's going on in the building, the chances of that person being alive, the chances of you getting out. If we open that door and he's there on the floor unconscious and not breathing, we have to get him out down 30 flights of stairs, just me and this other guy, through all the arduous conditions we've already got through, and our emergency whistles are already going off. So we will run out of air. We don't have enough to get back out the building with somebody else. We can't give him any air. So the chances are by the time we get down, he's going to be dead anyway. And if we get into trouble and we have to actuate our emergency alarms, other people in that building also don't get rescued. So you really have to weigh a lot up. And unfortunately, it is like playing God. You know, we're making a decision that potentially cost that person his life. And that is something that will eat away at you and eat away at you and eat away at you. And it's only within the last year really that I can talk about this without bursting into tears and becoming really, really emotional, because it hurts to think that I was that person's only chance and I left. You know, that's the black and white of it. And it may have been for the right reasons. It may have been the only viable choice, but the fact remains that I was that man's only chance and I left. And you have to come to terms with that. And that's a very, very difficult thing to come to terms with. It certainly has been for me.
Well, what does that recovery look like? How do you begin? Is it therapy? I'm assuming that the London Fire Brigade offers great like counselling and stuff like that. What is it that you said it's only been the past year that you've been able to start talk about it? How did you get to that point with what seems to be like a successful recovery?
The journey has been, I call it a journey because I know it sounds a little bit airy-fairy, but it is a journey, and that really is what it is. You start out, it's almost like being on a mountain and not knowing where you are. And you got to open up Google Maps to find out where you are before you can start going, right, well, how do I get to here then? You know where you want to be, but you don't even know where you are to start with. And that's the first thing. You need to find out where you are. And the problem that I found, and I will only ever talk, if I talk about PTSD today, I will only ever speak how it was for me. I can't assume it is the same way for anybody else, because I would imagine they're all very, very individual, very tailored journeys, and everyone's going to react differently to different things. But for me, I didn't know I was suffering with PTSD until I was coming out the other side of it. And that was the real dangerous part of it for me, because someone can turn around and say to you, you're struggling, you need to get help. And I will go, what are you talking about? No, I'm not. I'm fine. The reason I'm so angry is because you're being horrible to me. The reason I'm so angry is because that doesn't work anymore. The reason I'm so angry is because those decisions have affected me. And it's only with hindsight that I realised that while some of those things may have been true, my anger was completely and wholly disproportionate to what was going on around me. You know, if my girlfriend didn't put the fork in a dishwasher the right way up, it used to drive me mad. And normally that is a minor irritation, and anyone's saying, you're like, oh, done it again, turn the fork over. For me, I would fly into a frenzied rage, and I would be shouting and swearing, and why can't you just do this? And I felt like it was a direct, personal, aggressive attack on me. And I still remember the feeling of the anger that was inside me. It was proper rage, hatred almost,
really,
that lived inside me. That's what PTSD made me feel. And then once that rage and hatred left, I let it out. Once that's gone, then what I was left with is empty, hollow sadness. And that's there because all that anger is gone, and it's just left a void. And that void is guilt and self-worth issues and self-hate and all of the negative things that you don't want to feel. And so for me, I very quickly, within 3 months of Grenfell happening, I found myself sitting on my living room floor crying for 4 hours. I had no reason to start crying, and I certainly couldn't find a reason to stop. I just sat there and cried and cried and cried. And that was the first time that I thought about killing myself, because I thought, not because I didn't think the world needed me or because I felt unloved. I've got a huge support network. I've got an incredible family. I'm very, very lucky. Luckier than most, I would say, where that stuff's concerned.
Do you have kids?
Reason, yeah, I have one son, yeah.
Amazing.
But the reason I felt suicidal, the reason I thought about killing myself at that point was because I looked at my future and I thought, I can't see a way this pain is ever going to go. I don't see a way that this sadness that is consuming me is ever going to disappear. And I would rather be dead than feel like this for the rest of my life. And it was a very logical, obvious kind of answer to get to in a lot of ways, because you're like, well, you know, if I'd chopped off both your legs and you're bleeding out on the floor, and I said you can either die instantly or die in 6 hours, what one you picking? Instantly, please. You know, if you're going to die anyway. And that's how I saw it. I just saw it as I'm slowly just going to wither away and be consumed by this over a prolonged period of time. And it's going to cost everyone around me, and it's going to cost me. It's going to be horrible and painful. I'll just end it now. Thankfully, I didn't. I never actually attempted to take my own life. And again, that's testament to the friends and family that I've got around me, and also partly to my decision-making process. In terms of going down the route I went with recovery, which initially was some counselling from the London Fire Brigade's counselling and wellbeing team. It's a weird thing with the London Fire Brigade, because I've always been very complimentary of them and their support for firefighters' mental health. And that's because at the time when I needed something was there. But the reality is, and I've never said this to anyone else before, the reality is the London Fire Brigade are completely apathetic in their approach to firefighters' mental welfare. It's just not a priority. You are used until you are broken, and then you are discarded. And that is literally how the Fire Brigade are.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I've been told by a senior London Fire Brigade manager that me talking about PTSD, the London Fire Brigade are concerned that it could adversely affect future recruitment. They're worried that if we go on camera and we talk about having PTSD and how much the job has hurt us and broken us, other people are going to go, well, I was going to join the Fire Brigade, but actually that doesn't sound like the fun job I thought it would be, so I'm not going to apply. And it will affect future recruitment. Whereas what the Fire Brigade should be thinking is, this is a problem. Firefighters' mental health is a big deal, and there is a big problem amongst all emergency services at the moment with poor mental health. And trying to find the resources and the funding to support firefighters and emergency service workers' mental health needs to be paramount. And rather than look for a solution and a way of offering support so that we can continue to go to work and do good jobs, it seems to be easier to replace us and have a higher turnover of staff. It seems to be, I can only assume, more cost effective. But, you know, sadly, that's the British government for you. I think they're very apathetic towards the welfare and well-being of all of the people that hold the country up. And I include prison officers, our armed forces, nurses, doctors, police officers, paramedics, firefighters, R&LI staff, all of the people that go out and have to deal with that trauma. Yes, it is a choice. Yes, we do take these jobs on because we want to help. But we're just normal people. We're not superheroes. We're not superhuman. I don't have any more capacity to deal with seeing a child's head crushed under a bus than you do. It's just that we're expected to have an additional capacity, and it doesn't exist. So we need support. We need help. We need to feel like when we see these things, there is an avenue for us to be able to go, I'm struggling. Here's all the help at hand. Brilliant. I can relax now because I know there is an abundance of help. And going back to the counselling for the counselling and wellbeing team, the first thing you're told when you contact counselling and wellbeing is how long you've got to wait for your first session, which for me, thankfully, wasn't that long. I think it was about a month. But in terms of mental health, a month is enough for you to decide to kill yourself.
Of course.
And the second thing you're told is it's a maximum of 15 sessions. So you have 15 sessions to be well, or what?
I found one thing I found really interesting. I think I maybe read it on your website. I definitely saw it somewhere with you. It was either on the website or maybe it was an interview you did with the show. But you said that, I'm going to quote really badly, something like the police is who you go to when.
Yeah. So it was
everything else.
So it was, if there's a crime, you phone the police.
Yeah.
If there's a medical emergency, you phone the ambulance. Sometimes it will be the ambulance, and sometimes it will be the ambulance and us that go, because we also do first aid. And for absolutely everything else that ever happens, it's the fire brigade.
Yeah, it's amazing when you think about it like that, because it's true. And you think about experiences that you go through in life, as little as when my nephew a few years back was trapped in a room, the fire brigade had to come. Yeah. And there's no fire, but they came and they managed to get into the room and get him out safely. And you do feel, I remember At the point that they had arrived, I was already on the ledge outside the house, and I had managed to, because he was I want to say 2 years old.
I'm going to interrupt you there, and I was going to say that doesn't sound like a very safe place to be.
Yeah. Well, because
what were you doing on a ledge?
Yeah. I managed to get outside, right, and because and the thing is, at the time he was about 2, and so. He was old. I don't know if he was old enough to talk, or maybe he could say a few words, but he was old enough to understand, especially someone familiar. And so I was kind of talking him through, like, climb on the bed. Okay, now climb on the cupboard. I was trying to get him to open the door, open the window for me, because he's completely locked inside the room. And then the fire brigade came, right, and then like you feel such a big sense of relief instantly. Yeah. And I'm sure you hear that all the time. And by then I had managed to convince him, I'd managed to kind of explain to him how to open the window, because it was one of those ones that is, you have to press the button and
right, yeah.
So I said, press the button, push, and he managed to do it for a second. When he pushed the button, I just yanked it open. I managed to get him, right, but I was like stuck on this ledge. Yeah. And then that's when the fire brigade perfectly timed came. They climbed the ladder, and then I just gave them the child, and they had this. But what I felt,
so what you're trying to tell me is you saved a baby. That's what you're trying to tell me.
I was trying to basically say, I did your job.
That's cool.
I didn't need the fire brigade. No. This is the moral of the story is, by the way, you're cold, because shall I turn the AC off a bit? You're in a t-shirt.
I'm okay. No, I'm good.
Are you sure? Yeah. Fine. So we then had a conversation. They were so lovely, and they said to the kids, "Do you want to come in the fire engine?" And then they let the kids play in the fire engine for a bit. And I felt guilt, because I thought, you're meant to be saving people from fires, and we just had a kid trapped in a room. So then when I read that on your thing, it kind of made me feel a tiny bit less guilty, because we did need help at that time, and
like I said, that's our job. Our job is to help, and we will, as firefighters, we will go above and beyond. And I don't mean this to sound you're right there.
I was drinking my coffee. The first time for everything. Yeah.
I don't mean that to sound like, we think we're really special or anything. It's just what we do.
Yeah.
We enjoy doing it. And it's funny you bring up that story, because I went to an incident, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago.
Are you still a firefighter? Actually?
Yeah, I'm still a firefighter at the moment, yeah. I went to an incident about 6 months ago where a lady had phoned us, and she was exactly the same thing, in a bit of a state. I'm so sorry. I'm so racked with guilt when we turn up. I'm so sorry. I didn't know what to do. I'm so sorry to waste your time. And like, we haven't even started yet. Like, don't worry about whether you're wasting our time. People do waste our time, but it's very obvious when time is being wasted.
Yeah.
If you need help, you're not wasting anybody's time.
Sure.
Because if you don't need help, why would you be phoning us in the first place?
Yeah.
But this kid basically had gone into a bedroom. The bedroom door opens inwards, and they'd climbed up on a stool facing the door to try and flick the light switch, and then fallen off the stool, and they've got wedged with their arm down the back of the wardrobe against the wall, up to their shoulder, and their face pushed up against the door. So there's nothing we can do to get in, because if we force the door open, we're going to snap the kid's arm in half. So we're like, how else do we get in? So we've gone downstairs, pitched the ladder up, had a look at the windows. The windows are locked. It's almost identical to your story, except this time round the kid's stuck, so the kid can't get to the window.
Yeah, of course.
So we're looking, we're thinking, how are we going to deal with this? So what we actually ended up doing was removing the entire window frame and everything from the house on a rope system that we set up, got into the building that way, lifted the kid out, opened the door, and then spent another hour putting the window, hauling the window up, putting it back in, screwing it back into the frame, and making it safe so that the woman had a secure property to sleep in that night.
Wow.
Now, what we could have done is just smashed the glass, climbed in, grabbed the kid, here's your kid, and we could have left.
Exactly.
But that's not what we want to do. What we want to do is offer you the best possible service as firefighters.
I think that also speaks. I think that speaks to your character though as well, because it sounds like you're going over above and beyond, and that seems like the type of person you are. You could have smashed the window and you wouldn't have got fired. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, we could have smashed the window and it's completely justified.
Exactly right. Exactly.
But yeah, I don't know. I guess just in life, I think.
What makes you like that, Ricky?
There's a lot of smashing to do in life, and it's a lot nicer sometimes if you can do things gently and nicely.
But why? What makes Ricky Nuttall like that? Why do you go the extra mile? It's very obvious you do that in all aspects of your life, and I'm sure if I spoke to your friends and family, they would say that. What is it to do with your upbringing?
Yeah, I don't know, to be honest. I don't think it's to do with my upbringing in terms of that I was raised to be that way. It might be to do with my upbringing in terms of I didn't have a healthy relationship with my stepdad, who was a bit of a bully. So maybe it's like a counteracting thing. It's like, I don't want to be like him, so I'm going to make my life all about bringing smiles to people's faces and making people feel good about themselves, because that's what I want to do. And don't get me wrong, I'm no saint. Like, when it comes to banter, I have some of the most brutal banter. Like, I'm regularly apologising to my friends when I've upset them because I've said something a bit out of order or a bit too personal, and I'm going, oh no, you know, I'll get a WhatsApp and it'll go, oh, you know, such and such has got the hump with you, and I'm like, oh no, did he get upset about that? Yeah, oh, all right, I'll phone him. But what I'll do is I'll phone the person up or send another message, just be like, look, dude, I'm really sorry, I didn't mean to upset you, it was just banter. So I am quite a brutal person, and I do have a sick, twisted sense of humour, because again, I think with my job, and not just this one, other stuff I've done in life as well, I need to have that outlet. I need to have that sick sense of humour, under the right conditions and in the right circumstances, to cope with life and to deal with things. You know, I mean, we see a lot of really graphic, nasty things, and I've been doing the job 16 and a half years. That's a lot of dead bodies, a lot of traumatic situations.
But also a lot of lives saved.
Loads, yeah, loads. And you know, how incredible is it?
Amazing. To
be able to say that. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a firefighter. And if someone had told me as a 4-year-old, when you die at 85, you would have saved one person's life from being a firefighter, I would have been blown away. And that's all I would have needed, one life. And I've done it countless times.
Do you remember the first time you did it?
Yeah, I do. And funnily enough, it was on this ground.
No, really, was it?
It was on this ground, and it's a funny story. I doubt the people involved are listening. I don't remember their names anyway, but
Fine.
if they are listening, they'll know, because it's a very particular story.
Fine.
So basically,
And this was 16 years ago, was it?
yeah, around roughly 16
Fine.
years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. So we were called to a house fire, first floor masonette on this ground in Uxbridge.
Okay.
And we turned up there. It turns out that the property used to be some sort of safe house. Someone had got wind that they thought somebody had lived there, and they'd basically petrol bombed the front door, which meant the door's on fire, the hallway's on fire, the stairs are on fire, and the people are trapped upstairs. That's the only way in or out of the property. So as we've arrived, we got the hose out straight away, putting the flames out in the front door. Me and my colleague have put our BA sets on. There's a mum and a girl upstairs waiting to be rescued. So we've gone up there, grabbed the girl, grabbed the mum, and we've sort of half carried, half escorted them down the stairs and got them out. I was I was busy wallowing in my own magnificence at the time. Oh my God, I've saved someone's life, I can't believe it. Like, I was all, not outwardly, internally, I was like, outwardly I'm like, yeah, it's just day's work.
You're walking in slow-mo.
Yeah, that's it. You know, like chinged up, I wipe a bit of dirt on my face. But the reality is, inside I was buzzing for what I'd just done. And then the women started shouting, they're still in there, my babies.
No way.
And my heart sank and I went cold. And my governor just shouted at me, Ricky, they're in the front room, there's 4 in the front room. And I'm thinking, 4? Oh my God. So I've gone tearing back up the stairs, and I remember I've gone in the front room, and we have particular search techniques to use as firefighters, where you sort of sweep with your arm to make sure there's nothing in front of you going to hit. You feel up and down the wall, and you sweep the floor with your foot to make sure the floor's stable, and you're sweeping things out your way that you're not going to trip over things, and because you have zero visibility. And all of my training went out the window at this point. I'm frantically looking for what I believe to be 4 babies, and I've pulled the TV off the wall, I've knocked it off, I'm knocking tables over, I've decimated the front room, which is heavily damaged by fire. It's not like it was a pristine room or anything, but I'm panicking, and I'm thinking, I've got to find these kids, and I've gone around the room, I've knocked this cage across the room, and this other cage, the other side's gone across the room, and another table and chairs. And I've come downstairs empty-handed, and I am now really panicking, and I'm thinking, oh my God. I said, Governor, I can't find the babies. And he went, what are you talking about? I went, the babies, the 4 babies. He went, not babies, you idiot, birds. There's 2 birds in 2 cages.
Oh,
and I had flashbacks of me launching these cages across the room.
Oh no.
And I'm like, I might know where they are, Gov. And I've gone back up again, and I found these cages, which are now like, they're really old-fashioned, like Tweety Pie metal cages, with the dome top, and
imagine,
And I've come downstairs with these 2 cages and feathers everywhere. And, the cages are a bit bent and battered, but the birds are sort of flapping about still. And I'm like, I've got the birds, I've got them, rescued these birds. Right, brilliant. And then there was an article in the Uxbridge Gazette about a week later. And it said, heroic firefighters re-entered the property after rescuing the mother and daughter to effect the rescue of 4 finches. And they were called Cheeky, Chirpy and Charla, and I can never remember the 4th one's name. It said underneath, who unfortunately later died at the vets due to smoke inhalation.
No.
And I was like, yeah, it wasn't smoke inhalation, dude. That was 100% concussion.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it's
What's it? We've been talking about fire for a long time, and that, so we do have to. I'll move the discussion over in a second, but I am so intrigued. But by the way, how are you doing for time? It's 5:33.
No, we're good, mate. We've got as long as we need. Yep.
Fine. Fire's scary. Does one ever get over that?
I don't find it scary.
Fine.
Fire is mesmerising.
But like it's very. You said 550 degrees earlier. It's very hot. I know you're in a suit, but I imagine it's still painstakingly hot.
You can feel your skin burning.
Right, and then I suppose the fear is the fear of the unknown. In that, I'm speaking as a layman here. I'm sure you've heard these kind of things before, but like the initial fears that go through my head are. Fire catches on so fast. It's incredibly fast. And then the second thing is you don't know at what point something's going to explode or crush down. Does that ever stop getting scary? Like you said, you're not scared of it. That's all I can think about is how scary it would be.
Yeah, I think if you're going to be scared of the situation, then it's the wrong job.
Yeah.
Ultimately,
be a podcaster.
I think, yeah, right? Yeah, I don't think you can be. And don't get me wrong, there have been times when I have been scared, when I was trapped in a room and I could feel my skin burning and I couldn't find a way out. And there's that split second where you think this is the room I die in. And when you then add to that it's a 5-star hotel on Piccadilly and you're in the basement and it's Christmas Day morning, it's like worst case scenario. I don't want to die in the basement of a hotel I can't afford a room in for one night. Do you know what I mean? Especially not on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
I got people to see. I need to unwrap some presents. And so there are fleeting moments where something will go wrong or something will happen. And it will be that fight or flight situation where you're like, right, either my brain is going to kick in and I'm going to remember my training and I'm going to get myself out of this situation safely, or I'm going to capitulate and I'm going to run back and things are going to get worse. So there's only really one answer in that situation. And that is switch on, sort out the problem. And whilst fire can be erratic, it can be unpredictable. There is also a lot of fire science that we learn to become firefighters. So we understand combustion, we understand the decomposition of materials, we understand how heat will spread, we understand that smoke is basically petrol, smoke is unburnt fuel. So if you introduce a flame to smoke that's going above your head, you will actually see an independent flame flash up briefly. It's not burning anything other than the smoke. And you learn all of these things so that when you're in a situation, it's like the whole Miyagi thing, you're painting the fence and you think, why am I painting the fence? And then someone tries to punch you in the head and suddenly painting the fence puts your block in. It's the same with being a firefighter, I guess. You learn all of this different stuff. And then every now and then when you need it, something will pop in your head and you go, that's this. This is how I deal with this. And it just gives you that bit of confidence that you can cope with the situation.
You mentioned that you're... by the way, did you know that... Well, I'm sure you obviously do know, but... is it a complete coincidence that this episode has landed on the same week it's going to be the 4th year anniversary of Grenfell?
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah. 4 years, yeah.
It's weird because I guess we never really finished the Grenfell discussion. I was about to ask you about your son, but how does it feel 4 years on? Just to give closure to that topic.
So this is the closure I'd give you for that topic. There are still over 20,000 homes in the UK that are covered in flammable cladding. There are still waking watches in ground floor rooms of tower blocks where a fire marshal or fire warden is employed so that if the place catches fire, he will help notify people in the building and help evacuate people from the building. This is the UK. This is one of the richest countries in the world. And we still have 4 years after the biggest tragedy that's happened since I've been alive. 4 years later, there are still people that are going to bed at night, not sure if there's a fire, if they'll be waking up in the morning. That's a disgrace. It's an absolute disgrace. And I tell you, as far as I'm concerned, it's got nothing to do with race or religion. It's about class. This government does not feed the poor. This government does not want to look after the people that are building this country. This government abandons people that don't have wealth, because if they were tower blocks in Kensington or Knightsbridge, in the rich parts, populated and lived in by rich, wealthy people, do you think if Buckingham Palace had cladding on it, it would still have the cladding on? That'd have been off the next day.
Yeah.
Why do poor people matter less? Or not even, I shouldn't even say poor people, because that's probably insulting, to be fair, because lots of people that are in Grenfell aren't poor. Lots of people that lived in Grenfell had bought their flats, and there were some stunning flats in Grenfell Tower. So it's not even about poor. It's just literally class. If you're working class, the government are not interested. You don't matter, because we're easily replaceable. Firefighters don't matter. Police don't matter. We're easily replaceable. And that's a disgrace. To live in a country and be confident in saying that is disgusting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those events that you never... I had my cousin around the house yesterday, and we were speaking a bit about her mum who'd passed away, and we not in Grenfell, but generally we were just speaking about the passing of her mum, and we were saying that it's one of those things that you sometimes, it just pops up in your head again, you almost like remember, and then you find it hard to accept. And Grenfell's like that, like you get reminded of it quite regularly, and it's still hard to fathom, to accept, to understand. And it, like I said, anyone most probably in the whole of the UK, but definitely London, has, I think, will never forget that day, you know.
Well, I mean, the thing is that hopefully it won't ever be forgotten, and I mean that again in the nicest possible way, because things like that need to be remembered. They need to be remembered forever, because until change comes about and justice comes about, we have to make it a subject. We have to talk about it, because you can't have something like that happen, and then for it just to go quiet, the trail just to go cold. And this government have been so clever with the way they've done the inquiry. Start off with the fire brigade, try and turn the nation against the fire brigade, which was what they tried to do. Let's look at all the things the fire brigade did wrong before we even look at... I
remember that.
It's phase one of the inquiry was looking at the London Fire Brigade's response to the fire. Not being funny, we're an insurance policy. If we're there, everything else has already gone wrong.
Yeah.
We're not there at the start.
Yeah.
We didn't do the refurbishment. We didn't choose the cladding. We didn't install any of it. We didn't ignore emails from scared residents moaning about fire safety issues like the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea did. We didn't do any of that.
Yeah, that's an insult.
Yeah, but they started it that way because they wanted to redirect blame. And then, lo and behold, COVID comes along. Literally, as phase one of the inquiry comes to a close and phase two starts, COVID comes along. We'll have to shut the inquiry down. Just as it was building up a head of steam and the papers were reporting on the negligence of various different people, companies, councils involved in the fire, as that negligence starts to come to the fore and it becomes a discussion point, we all shut it down. Why? You could have just started running that remotely instantly.
Everything else worked remotely.
They left it, exactly. They left it a year and then they started it up again, but they've started it up. So most people don't know. Phase two of the inquiry is currently ongoing. Most people don't know because they've just kept it all quiet. It's old news to newspapers now, to news channels. They very rarely report on anything. And some of the stuff, if anyone wants to know more about what's going on, go to the inquiry website, because they have all day, every day, they have a live feed of people being cross-examined and questioned. And some of the stuff, I'll warn your viewers and listeners now, some of the stuff that comes out is unbelievable. Some of the things that people say are unbelievable. People literally being told, did you know when you did this that this was going to be the outcome? They're like, yeah, but I kind of figured, it was going to be more cost effective this way, and so I guess I didn't really think. But they're not saying this through floods of tears. They're saying this like it's a Tuesday. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's absolutely unbelievable. There seems to be so little remorse from the people involved, and it sums up how little when you consider that. Again, I don't know if people know, but in order for phase 2 of the inquiry to even take place, because it's an inquiry, not a legal case, it's an inquiry. So in order for that to take part, the people that were going to be questioned and cross-examined demanded immunity from prosecution based on the evidence they give at the inquiry in order for them to even take part.
Oh, really?
So they were granted it. So in the interest of the inquiry taking place, this government said to these people who are culpable, we will not prosecute you on anything you say in this inquiry. So that doesn't mean they can't be prosecuted. It means the evidence from the inquiry can't be used. So it means they can give a different answer to the police if and when a criminal investigation is brought to them. And the police can't go, well, hang on, that's a lie because in the inquiry you said this. They're not allowed to do that. How disgusting is that?
Makes no
72
sense.
people died. And that's what the government have done. In order for an inquiry to take place, we're going to say you cannot get into trouble for the bad that you've done. It's disgusting.
The question I was going to ask you about your son, again, if you don't want to talk about it, you're more than welcome to avoid the answer. But it kind of relates to this because you're speaking as someone who's passionate about change, and a firefighter, someone who has to see perhaps not that traumatic as Grenfell, but someone who has to see trauma on a day-to-day basis, especially other people's trauma. And my question to you was, first of all, how old is your boy, and does he look up to you in that way? Like, does he know dad's job, and he's like, does it make him happy? It's cool. My dad's a firefighter.
You would think. I think he is proud. His name's Charlie. He's just turned 8. He turned 8 on Friday.
Oh, amazing!
So a couple of days ago.
I've got a 1.5-year-old and a 1-month-old.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
you must be tired, bro.
Very tired. Yeah. I'm technically still on paternity leave.
Do you know what I love is when you said you're very tired, your eyes also looked a little bit sad.
Yeah, I'm very tired. It's very hard to get back to it because it's 2 babies essentially, isn't it?
Yeah. But at least the future will be easier because you'll have 2 kids close in age that can entertain each other. Whereas me and the now ex, because me and Charlie's mum aren't together anymore. We always struggled when by the time he got to sort of 2-3 and he's active and he's running about and he's doing stuff, he demanded all of our attention because he had no one else to play with.
Oh, I see.
So we would have to, if he's playing with toys, one of us was playing with toys.
Yeah.
And there's only so much Bob the Builder stuff you can do, you know, like before you're at the point where you're going, I'm going to just throw this stuff in the bin.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it's tough. But yeah,
8 years old is that age, isn't it? He can really understand my dad's a firefighter.
Yeah. Kids these days are very different to how I was as a kid. As I said earlier, we touched on it briefly. Like always wanted to be a firefighter from when I was a kid. I used to love Lego, and all of my Lego was fire stations and fire engines, and all of this stuff is what I loved. Kids these days are just stuck on YouTube and wanting to be podcasters and
it's true.
and YouTubers, and that's their aspiration is I want to be a YouTuber. And I've tried speaking to my son, and I've said to him, look, don't want to be a YouTuber. A YouTuber is a job that has less chance of success, and it's not to say that it won't work. I don't want to crush anyone's dreams, but you always need a backup. That's true. So make YouTube your initial backup.
Yeah, you can do YouTube and
so train to be, I don't know, like an electrician or something practical, or a lawyer, or whatever it is you're passionate about. Do that, and once you've got that, then invest all the time you can and want to in being a YouTuber. Because then if that doesn't work out, at least you can pay your bills. Do you know what I mean?
You have a skill.
Exactly, yeah. Rather than focus on the wrong thing first. And so it's not about crushing dreams. It's just reframing the picture. I think you need to adjust it. So I think he is proud of me being a firefighter, but he would be much more proud, sadly, if I had a YouTube page and 1 million subscribers. And that's just the way the world is now.
It's also funny because now they see like people winning £1 million in a gaming competition. Yeah, it's very normal. So it's like, oh, I can be a millionaire overnight. And I remember seeing an interview where like this kid came on recently with his parents on one of his morning shows, and he just overnight, he was 8 years old or something, or 9 years old, and overnight became like a millionaire. His parents, they're so proud, like it's obviously their money.
Yeah, I bet the parents are. Yeah.
And he just plays video games, and it's we didn't. I suppose when I was growing up, technology had evolved quite a bit, but it was still like, for example, if you were using the internet, you couldn't use the home phone. It was one or the other.
Dial-up network.
Yeah.
Stop hanging about in the online pool halls because your nan can't phone.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. Yeah. And also, even phones, like, they weren't smartphones. My first phone was like a flip kind of Motorola or Nokia thing. So,
how old are you?
I'm 27. What about yourself?
Okay, yeah, I'm 40.
Fine.
40, yeah. So yeah, my first phone was like, Nokia brick, 3310 or whatever. But it sounded like you're talking about like a Motorola Razr, like.
Yeah, mine was like, I had Motorola Razr was like my second phone.
So they've just on a side note, they've just relaunched the Motorola Razr.
I think I saw that.
But it's now like my Samsung, where you unfold it and it's got a complete touchscreen that folds in half.
Really?
So it's like a soft glass.
Are you a Samsung man?
I am a Samsung man, but only because, in my defense, because I cannot work out Apple.
Really?
I just
so simple.
Can't. Yeah, simple to those who know.
Yeah,
but I've spent hours wrestling with iTunes, just trying to put a song that I've legally bought onto my phone for the ringtone. And that just would not work. And at that point, I was like, do you know what? I'm giving up with this. Because on an Android, whichever brand you're getting, it is just a drag and a drop process.
Oh, fine. Yeah, I think you have to like buy from their ringtone version, or like the ringtone song or something. So yeah, fine, fair enough. Right, let's shift the conversation over to Ramadan. So as I mentioned earlier, I saw you on your Instagram, an Eid Mubarak post, and such a lovely post. And why don't you? In fact, I'm so intrigued. Why did you fast the last 2 weeks of Ramadan this year?
So I have a couple of Jordanian friends, Ali Al-Majali and Man Al-Majali. And
big up Ali and Man.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, good lads. They're good lads. And Man is, I hope they don't mind me saying this, Man is what I would call a good Muslim.
Yeah, because you've given their full names now.
Yeah, I know, right? I know. I just realised that.
It's like their full government name is now.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And they live at this address.
Yeah, their parents were like, oh, I thought you were a good Muslim too. Yeah, fine.
So yeah, Man is what I'd call a good Muslim.
Okay.
Ali is what I would call a less good Muslim. Fine. In terms of Ali doesn't.
He's working on it.
He's working on it.
Fine.
Yeah, he's working on it.
We'll leave it at that.
We'll leave it at that. So yeah, Man is someone that I've set up my website with, and has been there. They're both really, really good. Yeah, the best friends.
Okay.
And they're
brothers.
They're brothers. Right. Yeah. And they're incredible people. They've given me so much love and support over the last few years. Man is only someone that I've got to know more recently. And Ali is someone that's been in my life for like 10 years. He's just one of the world's good people. He's a good soul. And Man is exactly the same, being a brother. They come from a good family. I'll get onto iftar and stuff later. But I was round at Man's place. We were working on some bits and pieces, and he just sort of like off the cuff threw it out there. Because he was talking about Ramadan, and I asked a few questions. He said, "Oh, you should do it," and I laughed, and I was like, "No, thanks. Like, I'm good. I'm not good with no water. I'm grumpy and miserable."
That's always the thing that gets people. It's like the water bit is like, that's too much now.
The idea of it sickened me, to be honest. So I was like, and he was sort of half joking anyway. So I he made a couple of jokes, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I'll do it. Yeah." And then I sort of went away, and I thought, well, do you know what? I guess I was thinking to myself, why do it? Why would anyone do it? Now, I get the framework side of it in terms of if you're Muslim and you follow Islam, there's not really a choice. I guess it's expected that you do it. Okay, that's fine, but in order to do it with discipline, in order to follow it strictly, because one of the things I found is there are varying levels of fasting that exist amongst the Muslim community.
Yeah, it's like it's not meant to be like just. It's hunger from food and water. It's like discipline on the concept is that if you can discipline yourself against things that are generally permissible, then in this month, then you should be disciplined with things that are like not permissible generally outside of the month kind of
right,
thing. Yeah.
exactly. And this is effectively the answer I came to, because I was thinking, why would you do it? Why would you, other than because you're expected to? But there are so many times throughout a day, as I found, and I'd never noticed this. A really interesting point, actually. I'd never noticed before how many occasions throughout a day you're genuinely on your own until you fast. For me, when I fasted, every single time I was genuinely on my own was a difficult moment, because I'm like, no one would know.
Yeah.
No one would know if I had a drink right now and just quenched that thirst, or if I just snuck a flapjack into my pocket, or whatever it is. Do you know what I mean? And what I gained from fasting and what made me want to do it is exactly what we're talking about now, the discipline side of it. I thought if in those moments where it'd be very easy to, for want of a better word, be weak or show weakness, give up, not be willing to push yourself into an uncomfortable area. If I'm just going to give up the first time, then who am I? What do I stand for? I want to see what I'm made of. I want to see what I can do. I want to see what I can get out of it. And that was the primary reason, really. It was like, well, I'll probably lose some weight. It would be a good way for me to stop smoking, stop drinking, because I did it. I didn't, there was no, oh yeah, I'll do it, but because I'm not religious, I'll still smoke and drink alcohol. I cut alcohol out, stopped smoking. And unfortunately...
What, for the 2 weeks?
Yeah.
You didn't smoke even outside iftar?
No.
Oh, wow.
Just cut the lot out, the whole thing. And I did it, I only did the last 2 weeks because I was away working, and it was a new job with new people. It's like a part-time thing. And I didn't know how I would fare without food and without water. And I didn't see it as the most... It wasn't a convenient time, I guess, to start without knowing how I would be. You know, you don't want to meet new people and just instantly start biting their heads off and be grumpy. And so I thought, right.
And that fasting breath.
Yeah, right. Oh, wow.
I'm sure you've experienced that now.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, geez, yeah. And then, so I waited till that 2 weeks was over. And what I said to Man was, I'll do the last 2 weeks. And he was like, no, don't do the last 2 weeks, Rick. He said, you don't realise how tough this is. Like, just do 2-3 days.
Of course.
And you'll get something out of it. And I said, with the greatest of respect, if I'm going to do something, I need it to be worth something. I don't want to get to Eid off the back of not eating or drinking for 3 days and then fill in my boots for 2 weeks and then go, oh, I'm here for Eid. I want to earn Eid. I want to earn the respect of my Muslim friends and you know, not just Man and Ali, but also other Muslim friends that I've got. And so I thought, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it properly. So I just decided in that moment, I'm going to do it. And I'll be honest with you, 11 a.m. on the first day, I was regretting it. At 11 a.m. on the first day, I almost broke because I just thought, what am I doing this for? What am I actually going to get out of this? Realistic. I started to make up all these excuses and reasons for not doing it. And it would have been very easy for me to quit because I'm not Muslim. I don't follow the religion. I don't have a faith. So there was no pressure really on me. If I'd have just said, you know what, I did it for 2 hours and I gave up, I could have laughed it off with Man and would have thought no more about it. But I really wanted to challenge myself and I wanted to experience that sort of level of sacrifice. And one of the most common things that came back, which is again another interesting point, a lot of non-Muslim friends would say, well, basically all you're doing, Rick, is intermittent fasting. Like, you're banging on about it like it's some incredible thing. Like, you're just doing intermittent fasting. And I was like, I am doing intermittent fasting effectively. That is what it is. You're right. But it's intermittent fasting with no water.
Yeah, it's a big difference.
Which is a big difference. Right. And also, the time of breaking my fast is a time when I need to be asleep. Because I've got a job. So I was eating and staying awake until midnight so that I could eat enough between, you know, like, I think it was for me when I started, it was around 8:20, 8:21 p.m. Before I could break fast. And then I would stay up until midnight. I'm up at 6 for work anyway, but I would also be setting my alarm at 3:15 in the morning, waking up, eating some food.
I was going to ask if you did sahur.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did. That's clever.
So I would do that and then go back and then try and go back to sleep. And I made loads of mistakes, probably mistakes that that I'll tell you about now, and you'll be like, why would you do that?
No, I'm not best with it. Like what? I'm sure I did this.
So
because people are really good. Like they have porridge because it's slow releasing carbs.
Right. So the first night, man called me he actually it's quite funny. He called me a bad Muslim. I phoned him up, and after the first day, and basically what I had was I love olives and I love chorizo and all of this stuff, right? So I've got all of these salty foods.
Yeah, that's bad.
That I love, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there, and as soon as iftar's come out, I'm like, bang, and then I'm just throwing as much food in my face as I could, because I was so hungry. Because you've gone without all day, and then I felt full up really quickly, and then there was no room for any water. So I'm trying to drink water, and I'm like, I'm full up. I don't want to drink water now. And then I'd go to bed, and then that day I didn't want to set my alarm for 3:15 because that's an inconvenience. So I thought it'd be fine. I'll just go through the next day. So I woke up at 7 a.m. or at 6 a.m. sorry, and I was dehydrated, already hungry, still tired because I hadn't slept properly, and I'm thinking to myself, what am I doing? And I messaged Man, and I just said, oh man, like I feel terrible today. He went, what did you eat? And he went, did you eat dates like I told you to? And drink, just a few dates, drink some water, just sip it, leave it half an hour, and then eat some food, like I told you to. I was like, no. I smashed down some chorizo, and he went, what are you doing even eating pork?
Yeah.
And I was like, bro, look, I'm not Muslim. Like, I like chorizo. He went, well, you might as well just wash it all down with a Stella. And I'm like, all right. So, things like that. And then when I did set my alarm, 3:15 for suhoor, I would wake up and I would smash down a whole big meal because I don't want to be that hungry again during the day. But then I'm laying in my bed and I'm like, now I can't go back to sleep.
Yeah.
And then I'd be knackered the next day. I'd be tired all day. So I really did have to learn what foods were going to get me through the day comfortably, what foods I could eat that aren't going to fill me up too quickly, a different method of eating, a mix of proteins, carbs and fats.
How amazing is it that through those 18 hours or whatever, you're just dreaming about food, and you're thinking that you get all these different foods that you'd love to eat, and then the moment you open your fast, or break your fast, you forget about all of it. It's a moment, and all of a sudden you're not even hungry, and you think, is that how fickle like life is, or my emotions are? That one day a bit of water, and all of a sudden I've even forgotten about 18 hours of fasting now.
And this is something that I spoke. So I kept. I was doing some like almost daily Instagram lives talking about my fasting experience, how I was feeling, what I'm getting out of it. I would discuss if any, a lot of my Muslim friends would reach out to me, people I haven't spoke to for years, and would invite me around their house for iftar. And would be one lady, Nicoletta, is absolutely amazing. I think she's Moroccan, funnily enough. And she sent me an Eid diary.
Oh, that's nice.
She sent me a children's book for my son about Ramadan and about fasting, and another book, an adult's book about Ramadan. And these weren't books she had. These are books that she bought on Amazon and got delivered to my fire station at her own cost. And she did it because she could see. She probably saw more in what I was doing than I did, to be honest. Because when I started doing it, I just thought I'd do it for my friends to see, and I didn't think it was going to make that much of an impact, really. But I realised very quickly what I was doing was making quite a big impact. It was breaking down some of them boundaries and some of those stigmas that surround Islam in the Western community, and it just very quickly became a powerful thing. People would reach out to me and speak to me about it and say, "Oh, keep doing these videos, they're brilliant." And then other people other Muslims would contact me and be like, "Oh, I showed your video to one of my friends. They're going to do the last week of Ramadan now." And I think that's what the world should be like. We shouldn't be fearful of things we don't understand or don't know about. We should crave that knowledge, because if I'm fearful of something, mostly I'm fearful of it because I don't understand it, or because I don't know what it is. That's what as humans we're scared of. We're scared of the unknown, and we're scared of what that will mean to us. So what I now see fear as is, rather than be scared of the unknown and be worrying about what it means to me, I'll just go and learn about it, because that is a hole of knowledge that is created in me. I'm missing that knowledge. Well, I'm going to go and get that knowledge then. And that doesn't mean I'm converting to Islam. It doesn't mean I know a huge amount about the religion, and I will never profess to know loads about Islam. But I know more about Islamic people. I know more about the faith as a structure.
Yeah, you mentioned something in the video that I watched on Instagram, which I found really powerful. And it was, if you don't know something about a people, or perhaps you even have a preconceived judgment about a type of a lifestyle, or people, a faith, a way of life, rather than just keeping that preconceived idea, essentially try and walk a mile in their shoes, and you'll come out with two outcomes. You'll either you'll either realize that perception that you had was wrong, or it might not be wrong, but at least you've learned something about them, right?
Yeah.
You know what it's like, and that's the bit that I found amazing, because I don't think people often think like that. And even not me, I don't think like that. And there's so much more I could do to understand people a lot better, understand people's psyches a lot better. Did your perception of Islam change before, after fasting, or after Ramadan at all?
It did, to be honest with you, and I don't want to do myself a discredit here, but I've always found Islam, in my very limited with my very limited understanding and my limited knowledge of the faith, I've always found it to be quite a closed shop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. I can't go to a mosque. I'm not Muslim. I'm not going to ever be invited around a Muslim's house for dinner, because why would I be? It's, they're their own community. They're separate from me. It's different. And in actual fact, what I found was, well, everybody that contacted me invited me around for dinner. Yeah. Everyone said, "Oh, you should on the last night of fasting, you should go to a mosque." And I was like, "I can't go to a mosque. I don't." What do you mean you can't go to a mosque?
Of course you can. Yeah.
So of course you can go to a mosque. Just go to a mosque. Yeah. Experience prayer. And there was still a part of me that doesn't want to, because I don't want to. I'm not a faithful person, so I wouldn't want to be disrespectful in being there, knowing that I don't believe in religion, and not because I don't think it has a place, because I think religion is an incredible thing to have in existence. I think it gives people direction, it gives people support, it gives people a set of rules or directions to live by. It brings communities together. I used to see faith as a destruction of mankind, to be honest. I used to see faith as it's been the root cause of all wars. Faith.
Yeah, you hear that a lot.
And in actual fact, that's not the case. The root cause of all wars is not faith and religion letting down man. It's man letting down faith and religion. We are the ones that twist it to suit our narrative and to fit our narrative, so that we can justify our actions and use faith as a vehicle of control and all of that stuff. We're the ones that let it down. Religion in itself is a beautiful thing. How could it not be? How often do we as humans say to each other, "Just have some faith in me"? And we expect that, but we would be upset and insulted if someone said, "I haven't got any faith in you, Rick."
Yeah, of course.
But why have you not got any faith in me? What have I ever done to not have? Faith isn't a problem. Faith is something we should all have, and it's something we should, whether you're religious or not, whether you follow a faith or not. Most faiths, for all intents and purposes, are all kind of based around the same thing. The same values, the same morals, the same ideals. It's all the same. It's just the idiosyncrasies that are different. The names are different. Muhammad, Allah, God. And even a lot of those are interchangeable, a lot of the stories might be slightly different, but they're all kind of based around the same thing, and it's about giving and sacrifice and sharing and having faith in rather than just believing in someone or something because you can see it, believing in someone and something because you feel it. And that's how we should be as humans with each other. I shouldn't have faith in you. Like, today's the first time I met you. You picked me up, you left me in your car, you went in your flat. Like, you have faith in me not to be a wrong 'un and steal your stuff. I have faith in you not to be a murderer when I turn up here halfway across London and just get in a car with you from a tube station.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to have faith in your fellow humans, and if we do that more, it will give us a chance to open our eyes into how beautiful and magical a place the world is.
Of course. Yeah, it's amazing. How supportive are your family? I suppose you said you were away for work. So where did you spend any time with family at that time?
No, so I've only just moved back in with my girlfriend.
Fine, okay.
So I was living in a house share in South London at the time, and one guy there was Muslim, African Muslim, and he was not surprised to hear I was doing Ramadan,
Fine.
but very surprised to hear I was doing Ramadan properly.
Yeah.
When I said I'm not having any, he said, "Oh, how are you finding the not eating?" I said, "The not eating's not so bad. It's the no drinking liquid." You know, I'd played football on a Sunday
Yeah.
with no water, and I sweat a lot. Like I was in a mess. You know,
It's tough.
hard.
Yeah.
And he looked at me like I had three heads and was like, "What do you mean you're not drinking water?" I said, "I'm doing Ramadan. You can't drink water." And he's like, "Oh, you're really."
You're doing it.
Yeah. And I had a lot of, and I don't want to be stereotyping or anything, but I had a lot of Uber drivers that were Muslim. And as soon as I told them I was fasting, their faces lit up. We had a big conversation about it. And I asked about their family. And, you know, I didn't realise that kids don't fast.
Yeah.
And they might do what, a day here or a day there, dependent on their age and stuff. So that they kind of get used to it a little bit. And a lot of that is dependent on the kid themselves.
Yeah.
Some kids don't want to fast because it's hard. And other kids will want to emulate their parents and will look at their parents and be proud of their parents for fasting and want to therefore join in and impress their dads and their mums by their ability to fast. And that really wowed me as well, you know, to think there could be a 7-year-old there that's going, I want to sacrifice so that my dad can be proud of me. That's a really powerful thing.
Yeah,
you know?
that is powerful. That same nephew who got himself stuck in that room that time.
Yeah.
He said he's now 3, and he said I'm fasting. He saw his mum and dad fasting. He said I'm fasting now, right now, and they were like okay. And then obviously she would prepare him lunch and stuff, and so he'd eat his lunch, and then you'd say, Ayan, I thought you were fasting. And he goes, yeah, I am. And after he finished, he goes, I'm back to fasting now. So like, he'd fast basically in between his meals.
Yeah.
So it's
well,
funny,
you
but-
got to start somewhere, right?
Exactly.
You got
But
to
it's
start
nice.
somewhere.
It's nice because he feels like he's doing it and stuff. And
Yeah.
that was nice. Oh, it's amazing to hear, bro. It's amazing to hear your experience with it. Because you're right. Like first of all, you do hear often people like non-Muslims trying Ramadan and trying to fast, and it's amazing to hear and see their experiences, and especially having such a positive outlook on it because it's a massive sacrifice, the no food, no water. And also to hear that you've done so much of it, it's like 2 weeks is no joke. And I congratulate you, man. It's not me being someone who's fasted all of his adult life. I know it's not. I still find fasting one of the harder parts of the religion, and I've always said that. So like my friends' family, like, fasting I find tough, and so I it's amazing. It's actually, do you know what it is? It's inspiring because, like you said, we do it. Yes, because we love our religion and we love to do it, but as you rightly pointed out, it's also part of the religion, right? And when you enter Islam, we're told to enter Islam fully.
Yeah.
You know, like do things properly. There's a word in Arabic called ihsan, which is like, it basically means excellence. As Muslims, you should do things with excellence. Of course, we say that Islam is perfect, Muslims are not.
Yeah.
So just like you see bad apples in every part of society, you do of course see that in Muslims as well, but we should try and practice things with ihsan, with excellence. And so you doing that with ihsan is inspiring for me, and I'm sure it's inspiring for many of the people as well. And I know you said you have a long list of Muslims who have invited you to their house for dinner, but I'm going to extend that list, and I would love to have you around my place to do the podcast. I'm almost like outroing the podcast. This is not the end. I have other things I would ask you about. I would love to invite you around for dinner anytime it's convenient for you. And we'll get the boys around and stuff, and we'll do it at a time. Maybe one of the Euros fixtures. Perhaps we could watch together at mine.
Yeah.
That'd be really cool. I like
awesome.
that.
Thank you.
So I do want to talk about fatherhood a bit because it's all so new to me in over the last few years, and especially again now over the last month. What's that like? How is it? How is the experience of being a dad to a boy? What are the goods? What are the bads? What are you struggling with? What are you enjoying? What's surprising to you?
I think the thing I struggle with the most, or have still struggled with a bit and have struggled with the most, is as a man, I wanted a son, and I expected a certain type of son.
Okay.
And what you expect, you don't always get.
Yeah, sure.
And I expected my son to be like I was when I was younger. And I expected him to be rough and ready, climbing trees, liking football, doing all these different bits and pieces and these different things, and having an interest in physical things. And for the most part, he hasn't been.
Okay.
Like he doesn't want to ride a bike. Like he can ride a bike, but he doesn't want to. He's like, why? I'm like, what do you mean, why? And then when he asked me these questions, I'm like, I don't have an answer. I don't know why. Like, I've got no idea why
Because
riding a bike is fun, but I did it and I enjoyed it. So you have to do it.
Yeah.
And quite often, I think as parents, we spend a lot of our time, unless we're very, very aware, we spend a lot of our time trying to give our children things we didn't have.
Sure.
Or expecting our kids to like and do the things that we did. And the reality is that a child once created is unique and individual, and they are full of surprises. They'll make you laugh and say things that make you laugh when you least expect it, and you're like, where have you got that from? And they'll floor you with things sometimes. Sometimes my son, who's just turned 8, says some of the most insightful things in his innocence that you will ever hear anyone say, and he blows me away sometimes with the things that he says. And again, much like religion, children don't really ever let us down. We let them down.
It's out, isn't it? Out. You have to find it's like our polluted way of thinking. All of the experiences that we've gone through sometimes can be negative because it pollutes our thinking, or perhaps we're looking at things with other ill intentions, financial or otherwise. Whereas a child doesn't have any of that.
Yeah,
they can look at things. Sometimes a child says, "But why do we do things that way?" You're like, "Oh, I don't know." I don't know. Yeah,
yeah. They look at things with purity.
Yeah,
that's how they look at things. They'll look at a problem. And, to them, everything is simple, right? Because they don't have all of the intricacies that make a problem complex for us. Primarily financial side of things.
It is primarily financial, yeah.
They'll look at things and they'll go, well, if you don't like that, why don't you just do something else? And you're like, well, because I have to pay a mortgage at the end of the month. They're like, what's a mortgage? And you're like, well, that's the loan I had to get to buy the house. And they look around and they're like, well, we'll just live in a different house then. And you're like, they're right.
Yeah.
This is the main thing. They're right. Like, and that's the approach I'm trying to have with life now. Not an irresponsible approach, but I'm trying to say yes to more things.
That's amazing.
And I'm trying to not sweat the small stuff as much as I used to. I'm trying to look at things and go, oh, do you know what? The more positive I've been over the last 6 months, a year, some incredible opportunities have come my way. Just by being open to talking to people, being open to listening to people, being open to learning about people, and saying yes to things like a podcast or a video, or I write a lot of poetry. Just being willing to put that out there, willing to get on that and just go, do you know what, I'm going to spill my heart out for a pen, and then I'm going to throw it out there into the universe. And that makes me vulnerable. But I'm okay with that. Because if you're the kind of person that's going to use my vulnerability to attack me, you're one less person I have to worry about, because I can cut you out.
And I'll beat you to it. I'm happy to show my vulnerability, right? Like, you're not exposing anything that I'm not happy to.
Exactly. It's the Eminem approach to life.
Yeah. Well, I didn't understand that reference.
Oh, Eminem from in his the rapper.
Yeah.
So in the film 8 Mile,
yeah,
when he has his rap battles, he basically says all of the stuff about himself.
Yeah, right,
so the next guy that goes hasn't got anything to talk about. You remove the power by giving all of your insecurities to somebody on a plate. I call it strength in vulnerability.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about 2 things before we go over to the freshly grounded game, which I'm going to tell you about. And I'm actually going to have these boxes here are that. So I want you to I want to give you one before you leave. 2 things I want to talk about: your poetry and your I know we spoke a lot throughout this podcast as a theme about mental health, but I want to speak a bit kind of as an isolated topic a bit about mental health as well. So and I suppose they're interlinked, aren't they? So why do you do poetry, and when did you start?
I've always written poetry.
Fine.
I did it as a kid. Primarily, I would write things for occasions. So if it's my nan's birthday, I'd write her a poem telling her how much I love her. And they're always, at a young age, they're always quite juvenile, but my poetry is very literal, and I like it that way. Someone once said to me that the juvenile was the word they used. They said, your poetry is very juvenile, because it wasn't highbrow. It's not sort of full of similes and all this other English language literature stuff that you expected to throw into a poem. I'm like, my poems are full of feelings.
They're raw.
They're raw.
I like that.
Right, yeah. And that's what I like about them, because it means that whilst the subject may not be something that you can relate to, the feelings always are. And when I do motivational speaking now, what I do is I'm maybe arrogant in saying that I can speak to a group of people about any subject. Give me the subject, put me on the spot, I can talk about it. Because all you really need to talk about is feelings. Because everybody has feelings and everybody can relate to them. The subject, the thing that causes the feelings, is largely irrelevant. What's relevant is how those things make you feel and how you then cope with those feelings and use those feelings in a positive way to affect your life in a good way. So so I've always written poetry, and it started out that way. And as I got older, I guess I became more private with poetry. I would write when I was sad, and I went through, I won't use the reference I was going to, but I went through a bad breakup when I was younger that broke me, but absolutely broke me. And I wrote a poem about that.
Okay.
And I didn't put it anywhere, and I kept it to myself. And it's one of my favourite poems because it is really, really raw. And it starts off with, a part of me has died inside. I sat there silent and cried, just cried. Which was very, very literal, because that's how it felt. It felt like I'd been ripped apart and I was devastated, and it felt like there was no healing that's ever going to take place. And obviously you do. And I have this theory that 6 months is enough to get over almost anything. You know, even if, dare I say it, the loss of a grandparent. After 6 months, it's not that you don't love them or think about them anymore, but it's that rawness has dissipated enough for you to crack on with life. If you break up with a partner, it could be someone that you love. 6 months later, if you're still wallowing and still having problems 6 months later, you probably need some additional help, because your body is a remarkable healing machine. Our skin heals, our bruises heal, our cuts and abrasions heal, and our hearts and souls heal as well. And you've just got to put the right medicine in there to make that happen. And
when you think, sorry, I'm going to go off to Ricky, but this is a genuine question that I'm thinking of. When you think about how, because I often think about that exact thing, about the healing thing, right? The fact that the body can heal, but the soul can heal, and also that people go through such trauma in their lives. They lose parents, they lose children, and at that time it's so difficult. But it's not they get over it, but they can eventually continue living life, right? And for me, I always attribute that to God, and I think to myself, God has created humans knowing his creation. He knows what humans are going to be like, and so he's created this element of them that is healing, that will so that they can continue to function. How does that thought process look for someone who admittedly is like not necessarily a person of faith? Because that's how I process it.
So it's a really good question.
It seems very majestic, doesn't it, the healing thing?
It is, yeah, it is. And maybe this gets back to one of your earlier questions in terms of why do I approach life the way I do, in terms of wanting to help heal other people. Maybe that's where I get my healing. Maybe I get my healing in going, right, I'm going through pain. What I'm going to do is share that. And then you're going to open up to me and you're going to tell me you're going through pain, and I'm going to feel like I'm doing some good, and that's going to help my pain ease.
That's an amazing theory, yeah.
So it's not, and you know, the biggest killer for me is loneliness, feeling alone, right? If you feel alone in pain, if you feel isolated, if you feel like you're the only person going through it, it almost seems like a negative perspective when I say this, but what you need in those times is to know other people are going through that as well. As soon as you know somebody else is as miserable as you feel less miserable.
It's true.
I'm not the only one. You're miserable as well. Yeah. Let's get together and be miserable. And then that misery lifts a little bit.
Sure.
And that is literally the essence of counselling. That's the essence of group mentality. You know,
that's why they say rumination is the worst thing.
Yeah, exactly. And so I guess healing for me, whilst it's not religious, it is still very spiritual.
Fine.
I can feel proud of myself to be where I am now compared to where I was 2 years ago. I'm proud of what I've achieved. I'm proud of where I am. I'm even more proud of the people that I've helped along the way.
Yeah.
Because if you can help people when you're at your lowest and you still find time for other people, how amazing is that?
Yeah.
Like, and how many people will I be able to help when I'm healed?
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's brilliant. So
where can people find your poetry?
So I don't have a
you should.
Yeah, I probably should.
You have a website, Rick.
I have it. Yeah, I have a website. There are a couple on there actually. The one I wrote after Grenfell.
Yeah, I've seen that. The one that had the video to it.
Yep.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And there's another one I filmed with some people who I'm not allowed to mention, but
Fine.
I filmed it with them, and it's about depression, and it was filmed. The story goes that I'd come out of a counselling session. It was a really hard counselling session. I was in Euston in London, and I left there and I thought, I'm not doing well today, and I went straight to the pub. Bad Muslim. I went straight to the pub and I ordered some beer, and then I sat there and I drank a pint, and then I ordered another one, and then I ordered another one.
How was that?
I was miserable. It almost feels dreamy in terms of my recollection of it, and that's not because of the alcohol. It's because it was almost like, when I think back to that day, it's almost like I'm looking at myself through somebody else's eyes. My perspective of me sitting at the table is from an angle that I couldn't have seen. It wasn't me looking down at my beer, it was me looking at myself. And after about, I don't know, 5 or 6 beers, I'm well on my way to being quite intoxicated. And at that moment, something in my brain clicked, and I went, I'm going to write how I feel. And I sat there and wrote a poem called The Darkness. And it is a really dark, miserable poem about how depression felt to me in that moment. And for anyone who suffered with depression that has listened to that poem, said, you have literally put into words what I've never been able to put into words. It is, again, that very juvenile, very raw, very emotion-filled, sort of literal narration of how my depression felt. And for once, I didn't waste any time. I literally just wrote it. I think I read through it once, changed a couple of bits, and then uploaded it onto my Instagram. And then I got loads of messages going, oh my God, Ricky, are you okay? Please tell us you're okay.
Yeah.
Everyone's panicking, thinking I'm going to throw myself off a bridge, or, because it was a really dark poem. Yeah. But it's called The Darkness for a reason. And the whole point of it is to try and get people who have never suffered with depression or PTSD or poor mental health to understand how dark and lonely a place it is. And it doesn't matter what you look like on the outside. You can go to the gym, you can be a runner, you can have a smile on your face 99% of the time, but that doesn't change the fact that inside, all of that stuff is still going on. And the people that put the smile on, they're the people you need to worry about, not the people that are crying and talking, because they're doing what they should be doing. Robin Williams is one of my favourite actors, and he suffered with depression his whole life and eventually committed suicide.
And you would never have thought it.
You would never have thought every single film he ever made was a comedy. He was always seemed like this, larger than life person, and yet he was horrendously unwell, for most of his adult life, and that just goes to show how powerful depression can be, because if you can be him with the opportunity that he has, the career that he had, the money that he had, the family support that he had, the love that he had, all of this stuff that he had in abundance, and he still killed himself. And if he can do it, so can anybody who's suffering with poor mental health. So that one was filmed as well, and that's on my website.
Okay.
And it sounds like the kind of thing people want to avoid, but
no,
honestly,
I'm really intrigued. I'm going to
go on there and have a look. The website's www.justrick.co.uk.
Yeah, we'll have it in the description as well, so people can click it.
Yeah, go on. Sorry.
So with mental, you're a mental health advocate, and you do, as you mentioned just now, you do public speaking, and I'm sure a lot of that can focus often around mental health as well. I'm an overthinker.
Yeah,
I overthink quite a lot. What is your advice to overthinkers?
It's very difficult to give advice to anybody, really, about any subject, unless you know the ins and outs of the problems.
Right,
because
as a general, right.
Yeah, because you need to know, you need to understand what makes someone tick first of all, to know what they're going to react positively to or negatively to. You need to understand the problem that they have, why they're an overthinker. You need to know their background. They might be an overthinker because they had a worrier for a mum, and the mum's always panicking, and therefore the son became an overthinker and a worrier because that's the learnt behaviour. Sure. And then what you need to do is you need to unlearn that behaviour. In order to do that, you need to understand the dynamics and all of this stuff. One thing I would say that a quote that has helped me immeasurably over the last few years, it's something that hit me and it knocked me for six, and it's so simple and it just knocked me for six, and it's from a book called The Horse, the Boy, the Fox and the Mole. I think the book is called. And it's basically an illustration book, and it's these sort of like loosely drawn pictures all through the book with little quotes and little things, and it's used quite a lot in management theory and management strategy because there's so much in there. It looks like it's aimed at children, but honestly, it is. No one's read it, buy the book. It is incredible. And one of my favourite quotes out of the whole book is a boy and a horse are in the woods, and the boy says to the horse, "I can't see a way through," and the horse says, "Can you see your next step?" And the boy says, "Yeah," and the horse says, "Then just take that."
Wow.
And it hit me.
Yeah.
All of the time we look at the goal, we look at the future, we look at the end game, we look at how long a journey it is, and we feel overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Instead of that, just go, right, I'm not going to worry about that because that will come. With each step, you will get closer to that. So I don't need to worry about how far away it is. All I need to focus on right now is my next step.
You know, you just said you prerequisited that story. Is prerequisited a word? I don't know.
I think so.
You prerequisited that story by saying you can't. It's hard to give general advice to overthinkers, but that was it.
Right. Well,
It was phenomenal. It really relates.
yeah.
Anyone who overthinks, if you were to put it into a nutshell, it is the idea of looking maybe too deep into a situation and just focusing on the next step really helps. That's amazing.
I struggled for a long while with motivation to get fit, and what I found I was doing was I was comparing where I am now to where I used to be, and then I would feel depressed and rubbish about myself because I'd be going, I used to be so much fitter, and look where I'm at now. And one of my good friends, Sam, who's a former Royal Marine and he's a firefighter in London now, he turned around and said to me, "Don't worry about where you used to be or how far you've got to go. Just worry about where you're going now." And it took me a little while to sort of think about it. And basically what he meant was, if I'm on a run, it doesn't matter whether I used to be fitter than that. All that matters is this is how fit I am now, and this run is going to improve that fitness. How I used to be is irrelevant because that's the past. The future hasn't arrived yet. The only thing I've actually got any control over is what I'm doing in this moment. And if what I'm doing in this moment is the right thing to achieve my goal, that's as much as I can do. Don't beat yourself up about the past. Don't beat yourself up about how far you may have fallen in your own eyes. Just go, what am I doing right now? Is it the right thing? Yeah, crack on then. Enjoy doing that.
What is your, out of curiosity, training regimen like? Because as we say, mashallah, you're in good shape.
Do you know what? I've always been an active person. I used to run a lot. I've always played football. As I've got a bit older, I'm now my football has changed from being a centre back or a defensive central midfielder to a goalkeeper. So I now lose that fitness that I'd get every Sunday morning as a bare minimum. What I have to do at the moment is I have to sign up to things to keep me focused on what I'm doing. So this year, for example, I've got a couple of 10Ks, a couple of half marathons,
Okay, I see.
the London and Brighton Marathon.
Wow. That's not just some things, that's some major things.
I've got like a 4-day boot camp thing in the Alps in September. The London Surrey 100-mile bike ride. Like I will just go bang, signing up. I've got a boxing match on the 24th of July.
Really?
So and I sign up to these things and then I'll go, much like the boy and the horse in the woods, I'll just sign up to all these things. I won't worry about how much work is involved in any of them, which is infuriating to my girlfriend sometimes. She'll be like, why have you booked all this stuff?
Yeah.
How are you going to fit this in? And I just go, do you know what, babe? I'm just going to worry about my next step.
Yeah.
So the next thing that I'm doing is a 10K. So this week I'm going to go out and do a few runs and then I'm going to go and do my 10K. And, you know, I'm only in competition with myself. So I don't need to get an amazing time or anything. I just need to get it done.
Are you not lifting weights? Is that just like your natural?
I've always weight trained since I was a kid. Like when I was 14, I bought my first weights bench because I was at a really rough school in South London, and I was a little weed. So I was like, I need to buff myself up a little bit. So I started weight training then.
So it's muscle memory.
Yeah, kind of. I'm very lucky in that. It's harder to lose fat now than it used to be because I'm 40, but I will regain my muscle very quickly. So if I do, go away and do 2 weeks of doing pull-ups, press-ups, sit-ups and squats, I'll change shape very quickly.
Fine.
So yeah.
Ricky, thank you so much for jumping on the podcast. I want to end with, if you have the time, playing the Freshly Grounded game.
Okay.
So basically, I'll explain the concept. So we came up with this game. So the idea of Freshly Grounded is it started as a podcast, and hopefully it's now kind of built out as a brand. And of course, the essence of a podcast is conversation.
Yeah.
And we wanted to be able to, in some way, hand conversation over to our audience, because our audience always listen to the conversations. I'm blessed enough to be able to sit in front of inspiring people like yourself and hear their stories. But I know that there's that especially in our varying cultures, sometimes it's hard to have the tough conversations. So we wanted to create a way where conversation is fun, but the questions are really thought about, right?
Yeah.
So we've got a set of 100 questions.
Yeah.
And they're just like very simple questions, but they're thought.
Are we doing them all?
No. 100 questions. I'm just going to pick a couple for you.
It's a 6-hour podcast.
No. I'm just going to pick a couple for you. And so as a general rule, they're all like, the questions relate pretty much hopefully to anybody. There are a few that we stuck in there that kind of relate specifically to like spirituality and stuff. And so when you get the whole pack, you'll see that. But I'll give you a range. Normally I would go random, but to give you a varying range, I'll choose them. So I'll start with this one because it's like one of the light-hearted ones, right? Very easy. You can relax because I can see that you're tense. You sound
what's coming?
The question is, do you remember the first thing you saved up to buy? What was it?
Weights bench.
Oh, of course, 14 years old.
Yeah.
Amazing. We just heard that one.
Yeah.
Fine. Let's go with... Name one thing you love about the way you've been raised.
I was raised with more love than any kid could ever wish for. So I was very lucky with that. Yeah, very lucky with that.
Who is it that gave you that love?
My mum and my dad, but my mum is the person that sticks out where that's concerned. My mum has got the biggest heart, and she's just full of love. I may be 40 and bald, but I'm still her baby, you know?
Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. This is a nice leading on question. Who do you appreciate more as you get older?
I'm going to be a bit arrogant with this, and I appreciate myself more.
That's nice.
As
It's
I get
nice.
older.
Lovely answer.
I really do. I've learned to love myself, and with all of my flaws and successes and failures. And if you can truly, genuinely love yourself and appreciate yourself more, then you've got a much better capacity for doing the same to other people.
Yeah, I think that following on from that answer, you say you'd sound arrogant, but I think that's the goal for us, isn't it? When you can learn to have self-acceptance. I went through a journey like that where I realized that if I accept myself for who I am, I champion that and I celebrate it, then all of a sudden I've won that battle. In that people can't. A very easy way of explaining it. But this is a micro version. You know, you can have with larger emotions, but something like, okay, so we're really blessed here at Freshly Grounded that we don't really get a lot of criticism, right?
Yeah.
But a few of the common ones tend to be like perhaps about my like style of conversation, right? It can be that I talk too fast, or I take ages to get to a question, right? Like I'm giving context, and the question's why at the end.
Yeah.
And I think at first they were hard to accept because they were true, those comments. And then when I would criticize myself for it, I almost stopped being affected by others who say, because I would almost be like, I know, like, how annoying is that? And it was fine. Like, it wasn't like, how annoying is that you suck to myself. It was like, how annoying is that? But you know what? It's how your brain seems to process things, and then when you accept it, you move on. And
that's exactly the right word. It's acceptance.
Yeah.
If you can accept those things about yourself, criticisms about yourself, if you can be insightful into your own being, then you take back all of the power from critics.
Yeah, I agree. Right, I'm going through these. I'm gonna select like my top 5 or 6 or 10. So where's the okay? Okay, fine. What choice would you make? That's a good one. I'm going to ask you some. I'm trying to pick like a range for you.
Yeah.
So sometimes, like, especially in the Pakistani culture, it's like hard to like, it's hard to like open up, especially with like your dad as a guy.
Okay.
And like, so we had like those kind of things in mind. And we've had some people, we've had such amazing feedback with these cards. Like people have spoken to their parents about something that they've really struggled for a long time.
Amazing.
We've had someone say that like there was a really big family rift. There was a really big family rift that they were able to get over just by like through these questions. They opened up with each other and stuff like that.
What, by playing the game?
Yeah, because the questions
amazing.
hopefully are created in a way where, you know, I've asked you some of the ones that are like perhaps like about you, but there's other ones like, there's other ones that will be like, here you go, how can we improve our relationship? It's like a two.
Right.
So you
Yeah,
would say,
yeah.
well, maybe like, you know, sometimes like I text you and you don't text back. Right? And then
Yeah.
they open up a whole conversation. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I just thought like that was fine.
This is definitely a game with my culture and my family. This is a game where we would need to play it with no alcohol involved.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Yeah. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make sure that you go away with one. That's okay. Fine. I mean, this part of the podcast is gonna be very boring for people listening, but I'm gonna accept that because I know we're gonna get
There you
something
go.
great on the end of it. Yeah.
And we know you'll eventually get to the point.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's fine.
It's my fault for having 100 cards.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, in fact, while you're doing that, if you don't mind, let me just
Fine.
No. I was just going to say I want to talk about something just very briefly.
Please,
to do with-
please.
yeah.
I'd love that. I thought you were going to say that you wanted to put to the
No,
middle
no,
something.
no,
Please.
Yeah.
I'd love to. Camera's on you.
Cool.
And I'm listening.
So back to the Grenfell situation, and you touched on it earlier that there's a very big Moroccan community there, and there's a lot of Muslim families specifically that were affected by the Grenfell Tower fire. One of the things that I do through my website is I support a local charity to Ladbroke Grove called Kids on the Green, and they are a charity that provide a recording studio, but it's basically like therapy through the arts, and they're broke. Yeah,
Okay,
they've
fine.
got no funding or whatever. So anytime I do a talk or a podcast or anything at all, I always say to people to visit my website, and at the very bottom of my main page, there will be a Kids on the Green logo and a link so that they can click on that and make a donation, so that those amazing guys at Kids on the Green can continue to offer support to the bereaved families and the children mostly that have been directly affected by the fire. Now, obviously, not all of the children are Muslim, but there is a large Muslim community there that has been affected. So if anyone does want to help out, there's a really easy way to get to the charity and to donate a little bit of money. And I know people always say this, but literally, you know, if you've got a spare £1
Yeah, of course.
and 100 people donate £1, you know, they've got 100 quid they didn't have before, and that really does make a huge difference to them. So if anyone can donate, as I said, Kids on the Green, the link's at the bottom of my website page, and you can go through and do that.
And look at that. That was, first of all, thank you guys. An amazing conversation to fill time up with. It genuinely is. And also, we have really refined things down and almost finished.
Do you need me to feel a little bit?
No. I'm literally, look, I'm on last year, so... oh, that's a nice one. Okay, I've got them.
All right, let's do this.
Here we go. All right, so let me tell you how many there are, and then we're going to end the episode. I really appreciate your time, Ricky. I'm so sorry.
That's all right, mate.
I even thought maybe I'll get home for the second half of the England match. So let's check the score as well quickly.
This is the cricket against New Zealand.
No, this is England's friendly against Romania today, football.
Oh, didn't even know they were playing.
Yeah, 1-0 England. Rashford scored a penalty. They haven't been doing great in these friendlies.
No,
Right.
England never do.
But on paper, they've got such a great team. I thought
do you
they'll
know,
win the Euros maybe.
We say that all the time. On paper, it's the best phrase. But
Why is that?
On my football WhatsApp group, we talk about that phrase all the time. On paper, we should have won about 6 major tournaments. But
It's true.
the reality is, when when it comes to the crunch, when that pressure's built,
Yeah,
we fall apart.
Why? I was speaking about this with my cousin the other day. We were at golf and the match was on in the back, and we were just saying that there's something weird because on paper
It's a
great
winning
team.
mentality. You that winning mentality is learned, and the problem is that we haven't won anything for so long. What we've learned is how to fail at a semi-final.
It's tough because you look at it now, and we are going to go into the cards, but like some of the best in the Premier League and in other leagues, like you've got Trippier who just won La Liga, you've got Sancho, Foden, Kane, most goals in Premier League. Like
We got an incredible team.
Incredible team.
We really have.
But I think France are going to take it this year. I think France.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Right, go. Shoot.
What are you struggling to let go of that no longer serves you?
Oh, that's a good question. What am I struggling to let go of that no longer serves me? Resentment. I have resentment towards several people in my life that I feel have wronged me, and it's a struggle to let go of that sometimes. When you manage to let go of it, it's enlightening, and it buoys you. You know, you feel relieved. So it's something I'm working on.
That's amazing. It's amazing that you can be so honest with yourself, to be honest. When was the last time that you experienced happiness at 100%? You were just elated.
Happiness at 100%. I'll be honest, I'm really lucky at the moment. I'm happy a lot of the time.
That's amazing.
I don't know if anyone's ever happy 100%. I mean, you've got to have some kind of life to be happy 100%, right?
Fine. Do you find it easy to apologise?
I would say yes. My girlfriend and the rest of my family would say no.
Okay, fine.
I think what I need the cooling down period. I will go away and I will think about what I've done or said. And even if I'm forced to apologise at the time, I won't mean it. What I need to do is go away and think about it. And I go, no, do you know what? That was out of order. Then I will go back and I will say sorry, sincerely.
I'm fairly similar in terms of I need that cooling down period, but I find it hard to get myself out of this. I know that the best thing is to get out of the situation, have that cooling down period, and you'll be a better person. I find it hard to get myself out. Are you able to leave a situation?
Yeah, I'm quite introspective. I will assess myself constantly, and I will go, right, my best way of doing it is to take myself out of the situation and put myself in the other person's shoes. And I will go, right, if I was that person, how would I feel about what just happened? And try and look at it that way. And then I can go, well, I'd be really irritated by that. And then I can go, right, well, then there's no reason I should expect them not to be irritated. And whether I meant it or not, the fact is I have affected them. And that is what should be apologised for.
Yeah, fine. I understand that. Okay, here's an interesting one, because the theory is that these cards can be answered by anyone in any situation. So this tests that, because it's been about 3 hours. It says, what's your best memory with me?
My best memory with you.
So because before us, you're going to have to really...
Honestly, and this is no disrespect to the podcast, my best memory with you has been you sticking your head back out your flat door when we parked up there earlier to say to me about the honesty thing about leaving me in your car.
Yeah.
That was because I was thinking the exact same thing.
I know.
As you got out, I thought he's left the engine running.
My phone was unlocked
here. I could literally just get in the driver's seat and then I thought, where would I even go?
No, like, but do you know what? Because I was thinking that, because it wasn't a proactive decision. It was just normal to do. It's a thing to do. Yeah. And I am quite vigilant with things, generally. So
I take that as
must
a
have
huge
really trusted.
compliment.
Because I had just picked you up from the station and I needed to go back to the flat and grab something. And I said, I just got to go pick something up. I left the engine on, the keys on. The keys for my flat, which you now know where I live.
Yeah.
There. And my phone not only was in the car, but it was unlocked. So you wouldn't even have to do a password. And so I got out, I walked around the car, and as I was in the car, I looked back and this is I'm trusting you incredibly right now.
A lot of trust. Yeah. But that's nice. That's how the world should be.
Yeah, it's true.
I don't believe trust should be earned. I think trust should be given until you're given a reason not to give it.
I agree. The default should be trust. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Describe your ultimate cheat meal.
My ultimate cheat meal, generally speaking, is a really dirty, greasy Chinese.
I love a Chinese.
Love a Chinese.
Yeah.
Love it. Like getting, them pancake rolls with all the bean sprouts in and all that.
Oh, I've not seen that. No.
Proper greasy.
Like the other thing about Chinese is a lot of Chinese food has a pig, to be fair, as well. So I don't have any of the pork stuff.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so those generally do.
Are those the ones that you like? Is that the bits that you like?
Yeah. Well, I'm a bad Muslim, right? So
fine. All right. What's been tough about today?
Tough. Nothing's been tough about the podcast, to be honest. The journey here was tough. Trying to fit it in has been
That's a
tough.
valid
but
answer.
yeah.
In what ways are you a difficult person?
Oh, I'm so stubborn.
Are you?
I am one of the most stubborn people you'll ever meet in your life. Sometimes it really serves me to be stubborn because it means I will achieve where otherwise I wouldn't have achieved. And sometimes it's a very destructive stubbornness where I will damage friendships or relationships where I didn't need to.
This is a question that is or like on the religious side, right?
Okay.
But I think that I think that it can be answered by anyway, and it's not that religious, just because it has the word Allah in it. So it says one of Allah's names. So we believe that. So the meaning of the word Allah, right? You must. I'm sure you may have heard it, but I'll say it anyway. So I think, or you hear more commonly as like Allah. So Allah or Allah. It just means it's broken up in Arabic to like al-ilah, and then like when you say that together, it's like Allah, and what that means is the one. That's what it means. And
right.
so I've heard that even in Arab countries like Egypt and stuff, that it would even say Allah on the name of churches and stuff because it just means one, like the one worthy of worship. But I'm going a long way of saying that there's like other names that Allah has that are his attributes, right? Example, in Arabic you say Ar-Rahman, which means the most merciful. So one of his like attributes is that he's forgiving. So, you know, you commit a sin, you can always turn back to him, for example.
Nice.
So that you need context. This question says, one of Allah's names is the subtle, right? And so the idea of that is sometimes you think back on life and you think, look at how that like all happened. Only now do I realize that if I didn't do that, then that wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
And it was all such a subtle move. One of Allah's names is the subtle. Do you remember a moment that shaped your life as you know it? So one of those subtle moments, and now you're sitting here where you are in your life at 40 years old. Can you reflect on something, a really subtle change that happened?
Yeah, and it was back to the poetry. It was the decision to publish, if you like, my Grenfell poem.
Okay.
Because had I not done that, people wouldn't have reached out to me. It wouldn't have got picked up. It wouldn't have been made into a short film. I wouldn't have gone to Manchester Film Festival with it. Subsequently, I wouldn't have done TV interviews. Then I wouldn't have done audio. And literally everything that I'm doing currently, all of the good work that I'm doing in supporting other firefighters' mental health and highlighting mental health. And I'm a mental health advocate for UK ESG, which is a charity that's launching soon, that will be a one-stop shop for all emergency service workers, so they can get proper mental health support when they need it. It's going to be the biggest mental health charity in the UK, and I'm one of the ambassadors for that, and also for It Starts Monday, run back sort of headed by Curtis Woodhouse, former professional footballer, former professional boxer. The idea of that is to combine the mental health and physical sides of improving yourself, self-improvement.
So this all stemmed from the one decision to...
And this is all of this stuff has all come from that decision. If I didn't... And it was a big decision, and the reason why is I'm a quite a masculine-looking, tattooed, bald-headed white man in the fire brigade.
Hench.
Who boxes, keeps himself in shape. And it was a big decision to go, do I want to add poetry to that list?
Yeah, it doesn't
do I
fit.
want to... It doesn't fit the narrative, do you know what I mean? And I'm quite a brash person in sort of jokey ways, and I wasn't sure if putting that out was going to affect me in a negative way or not. And I had to be really brave to post that poem and then to let everyone know that I write poetry. But without that bit of bravery there, that one little decision, all of this other stuff wouldn't have happened.
I love that self-awareness, man. I love that self-awareness. Okay, last few. You can go about these fast if you want, or however, whatever speed. I'm in a rush. When was the last time you decluttered your life? I
declutter my life on a regular basis.
Do you? That's good.
Yeah, I declutter my life by putting up statuses on Facebook about privilege and racism, and then I wait for all of the people that don't fit in with my life to come to the front and start banging on about all of their nonsense about white privilege not existing, etc., etc. And then I remove them as friends from Facebook.
Fine.
Decluttered.
Fine. When was the last time you cried?
Oh, I cry all the time.
Really?
Yeah, I'm a crier.
That's amazing.
I cry all the time. I think probably the last time was when I watched back the episode of SES Who Dares Wins, where number 15 Jamie spoke about being abused as a child when he was playing football for Stoke City. The bravery he showed to go on TV in front of millions of people and talk about that was incredible, and that really, really moved me.
Yeah, that was powerful, that one.
Yeah.
What choice could you make this week that would minimize stress?
What choice could I make this week that would minimize stress? Organising things. To be honest with you, I think organisation, or a lack of organisation, is one of the biggest causes of stress, because it's laziness. You don't get organised, you don't do things that you know are going to be a problem later on. And then with me anyway, everything's a rush last minute, and then I feel stressed. Whereas I could just choose to do things straight away, in the moment, that next step. Don't worry about the end thing. Just make that first step again, and get things done, and then all that stress doesn't ever appear.
I'm very similar. Last 3 questions. What is weighing heavy on your heart right now? Is it the 4.5 hour journey?
yeah. The 4.5 hour journey back to Plymouth. No, again, to be honest with you, nothing really is weighing heavy on my heart at the moment.
That's good.
I feel, it sounds like a weird thing to say, but I feel very light inside at the moment.
That's good.
Which is nice.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That also means that you feel comfortable here, which is nice.
I am, yeah, very,
That's nice.
yeah.
When was the last time you dared to do something great?
Dared to do something great. I would like to think that I try and do great things all the time.
Especially in the job you're in, you probably on a daily basis, you are doing something great every day.
And even fire brigade aside, just I put myself out there to be available for people that need help. I'm not qualified to any end to be a counsellor or anything like that, but I've got empathy, and sometimes if all I can do is listen and say to someone I understand and tell them why I understand, just them knowing that I understand what they're going through is enough for them to feel supported and to get something out of it. And you have to be quite brave to sort of take that on as well when you're dealing with all of your other stuff. So yeah, I try and do that all the time.
Last card. This relates to the fact that you just did Ramadan, yeah?
Yeah.
And you're on Freshly Grounded and stuff, so we're ending it on that kind of topic. Tell me an Islamic reminder you once heard that has stayed with you to this day. Probably from man, I'm assuming. Could be about Ramadan.
Yeah, the biggest thing really was the one part of fasting that I hadn't considered, which is, again, back to why we fast. And it was from my friend Nicoletta, and she said to me that it was about going through sacrifice so that you understand more about people that do that same sacrifice but not through choice. People that are starving, people that are hungry, people that are thirsty, people that might have to walk 17 miles for clean water. You fast and you understand the hardship, just a little insight into it, and that really made me think. Again, not differently in terms of I didn't have a negative perspective of Islam, but it really highlighted.
Adds a layer,
yeah. Yeah, that's it. Adds a layer,
yeah. There was this. I don't know the context specifically in which this interaction took place, but I believe it was something like maybe one of those like TV shows where there's like an imam or something on the show answering questions or something. But a person called in from another country and said, will our fast still be counted, or will it still be accepted if we don't have an iftar because we don't have any food?
Wow. And
he just started crying on live. You think about, despite the fact they don't have food, look at how high of a priority is that, and that is, and we believe that Allah is the most merciful, that he doesn't. One of the sayings is that in the Quran it says that Allah does not burden a soul with more than it can bear. So yes, we have all of these rules, but there's we say like a fiqh, you look at people's individual situations as well. Like you said, the cab driver who might be traveling or who might not be well, medical reasons might not be fast. You can look at persons, and Allah will never burden a person more than he or she can bear. You'll never be given more in life than He who created you knows that you can handle.
Yeah.
And yet their level of discipline, their level of faith was so high that despite
their priority wasn't being hungry. Their priority was
will it be accepted?
Making sure their fast will be accepted. Yeah, that's incredibly powerful.
Yeah, that was really powerful, and
Wow.
it makes you emotional thinking about it. To be honest,
Yeah,
that there's
it
people,
does,
and then
yeah.
you look at you, then you feel ungrateful. You think, well, look at everything we have in life,
Yeah.
and we're like, we with the 1%, we live in a secure country. We've got healthcare for, yes, we pay our taxes, but essentially, like, for all intents and purposes, free.
Yeah.
That we have access to. Even if you were and yes, homelessness is a huge issue, but for the most part, housing needs work, but people, we have roofs over our head, and so on and so forth. And it's very easy to look at those above you who have more, and very rarely do we look, or me at least, look at those below us and say, you know what, I'm very grateful for the position that I am in life.
For my privilege.
For my privilege, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny you mention the homeless thing, because even if you look at homelessness, there is a huge disparity between being homeless in this country and homeless in another country.
Sure.
Here, you're fortunate enough that if you're homeless, the chances are, by sitting outside a cash point or a Costa or whatever, someone will get you coffee. Someone will give you some money. You might get enough change or whatever to be able to afford a bed in a hostel that exists. When you're homeless and my only reference point really is India, which I travelled for a month back in 2010, and I saw a homeless guy washing in a metal like oil container that was filled with dirty water that they'd been using doing some building work underneath a motorway bridge, and he was literally washing himself with water that's soaked in cement, which is caustic and toxic, and is going to burn his skin. And that's homeless. That's a different level of homeless. He can't sit outside a shop and beg for money and get some. Like, no one's giving him anything.
Yeah, that's very powerful, man. Those lived experiences are very powerful.
Yeah.
Rick, I don't want to take up any more of your time. I take up so much of your time. I'm so sorry, because you had
That's all right.
other appointments that I've completely delayed you for.
It's okay. I
really
talk too much.
No, it's my fault. I really appreciate your time. And like I said, I extend the offer. Please do come around for dinner. But you're also more than welcome on Freshly Grounded whenever you like. Thank you so much. Those of you listening who want to follow up with Rick, you can go to justrick.co.uk, which is his website. It will also be in the description. And Rick, if people want to contact you and reach you personally, how can they do that?
They can do it through my Instagram, which is justrick999.
Good.
Or they can do it on the contact section on my website. There's
Fine.
a little info address, and they can just fill that out and I'll get the emails.
Guys, do get in touch with Rick. Let him know how you found the episode. Let us know how you found the episode. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next week. Thank you, Rick.
Cheers, mate. Thanks.